Hey guys, welcome to the Launchpad, and thanks for joining me with the rest of the Rehab Rebels. If you don't already know, the Rehab Rebels are on a mission to launch out of the rat race, and we're committed to doing it together. If entrepreneurship, real estate, and passive income mean as much to you as they do to us, then you're in the right place. Sit back, buckle up, and prepare for launch. If you're enjoying our episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the Launchpad and like us on Spotify. Just tap one of the links below. By subscribing, you'll get new episodes delivered straight to your library every week. I'm with Travis Swift today of TNT Contracting, and Travis has actually been working with North Oak for the last several years, not as a borrower, but as a resource that we go to finish a property if one of our loans don't finish themselves. And Travis is one of those rare people in the world that you can count on. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And that's just so hard to find. It's just been a joy and a blessing to work with Travis. And as I've gotten to know him over the last few years, we've had the opportunity to have some lengthy discussions about business and what he's doing in his business. And I realized, man, this guy has a really impressive business system that he's built. And your background and the story of how you've learned all of the things that you're doing and the lessons learned, I just think that that's a really neat story that people can extract a ton of value from. So it would be a good idea to take some notes and sit back and learn from what Travis has been through. He has some really impressive things going on. So
I appreciate that.
So you got started as a 14-year-old working at grandma's barbecue restaurant. Is that
Yeah.
right?
So my childhood was interesting. So my grandmother owned a barbecue restaurant, but I mean, she was an immigrant, came here, worked as a bartender, worked as a cook in some barbecue restaurants, kind of worked at Rosedale and like was at Wyandotte, and her dream was to have her own place, do her own thing. And so all this was before I came along. I was her first grandchild, but she bought a building from a lady she worked for, and then built this restaurant there, and then built her apartment in the backside of the building. So it was pretty normal for me to see my grandmother wake up at 5 a.m, start chopping wood for the smoker. Then open up the bar, the restaurant. By noon, we're running. So I was bussing tables, prepping, getting ice, then start working in the kitchen, being all those things, just to try to earn a few dollars, because our goal was to get up to the movie theater that was a block away, so we could go catch a show, get a box of candy and a soda, and that was childhood. But no, it showed me how to hard work, and I guess I never really understood not doing something for yourself.
When did you first start thinking that you might be an entrepreneur one day?
Honestly, the funny thing was after high school, I went into the Air Force, and I was about 6 months away from getting out of the Air Force. And I was looking around, like, what am I going to do? I knew I was going to finish up college. I had a couple years left. They'd paid for most of that while I was in. So I was going to do that, but I was looking for a job, and my stepdad at the time looked at me and he goes, "Travis, you're not going to work for anybody else. You're going to work for yourself. I know you." And I'm like, and it was funny that he saw that in me, because as soon as he said it, I kind of looked at him. We were on a camping trip. I think it was my 24th birthday, and I kind of just clicked. And for the next week, I thought about that, and I kind of just knew that's what was going to happen. So after that, I bought a house in Lawrence, which was my first real estate investment, because somehow I knew I always wanted to own some real estate. I was an electrician in the Air Force, so it seemed like it was going to fit. So I bought that house, and then I was going to go to KU and finish up my degree, but at the time I met my wife as well. So some buddies of mine from the Air Force, we started this contracting business, and we were going to do contracts for the government.
Tell me about your time in the Air Force. What were you doing there?
So basically I was roofing houses at the time, And a buddy of mine said, hey, I'm going to go to the Air Force recruiter. And this was like my first year I've been out of school for about a year. I was going to some college. I wasn't ready for college. And he's like, I'm going to go to the Air Force recruiter. And I was dirty. It was 100 degrees. And I was thinking, anything's got to be better than this. So I went down to the Air Force recruiter. And I didn't know really what I wanted to do. But he was like open electronic, you have great scores. I took some tests. And they're like, yeah, your scores are great. You could pretty much pick any job you'd like. And I was like, I don't know. Like open electronic, that seems like it'd be smart. I figured I'd be working on computers or something.
So what were you working on?
Oh, well, then they made me an electrician when I got done with basic training. So everything from being a lineman, so like high like voltage power lines, down to your electrical socket, lights in a building, all the way down to your control voltages for say big dock doors for like was it hangars where you're keeping planes. So a lot of control voltage, security systems, fire suppression, things like that. So we did that. I got deployed a couple of times after, was it 9/11? So we went out there and we'd build bases, which was a great experience. I never worked so many days so long in my life. I didn't know that was even a possibility. And then once you realize everybody's doing it, you kind of just do it. And it's something bigger than yourself, so you kind of, you don't even think about it. It's like you've been on a sports team or like anything. It's the same thing. You're selling out for the guy was it next to you because you believe you're doing something bigger than what you are. So.
With the military and the precision, I mean, they're notorious for precision and discipline. What are some things that you took away from that time there?
Oh, absolutely. When I say right after 9/11, so 9/11 hit, we were doing exercises on our base at that point in time. So I was working overnight, 12-hour shifts. It was basically like war games. We were sitting around watching television more than anything. And then all of a sudden I come home, World Trade Center gets hit. My roommates come and wake me up. And they're like, hey, you need to wake up. And I was like, dude, leave me alone. I've been up for 12 hours. The second plane hit. Then they're like, you need. So I woke up. I look around. So that night, like the whole world changed for all of us, of course. And then I would say it was about 8 days, was it later, I was getting ready to head back up to Kansas City because I was stationed down at, Whiteman. I was going to come see some friends, see my folks. And our major comes and says, hey, there's a group of you. I need you all over at readiness at 5 o'clock. You're getting on a plane at 8 and you're going to the Middle East.
Wow.
So that's what we did. They dropped us in a field. And you want to talk about the precision and just what I was amazed by is they land us in a beach on an island in the middle of the Arabian Sea, just south of was it Saudi and Iraq. We're there for 30 days, and inside of 30 days, we went from having 100 and some guys that were there building a base to where we were producing 40,000 gallons of water a day of drinking water out of the ocean.
Wow.
We had 13 diesel generators the size of tractor trailers that were going to 3 switching stations, and we were bedding down 10,000 people with electricity, air conditioning, computers, hot and cold water.
Wow.
Out
in the desert.
Out in the desert.
Notice.
Yeah, just and we did. We worked. We landed there. It was I want to say it was like we got in country on like the 21st of September, 22nd of September. It was the middle of the night. But by Thanksgiving Day was the first day we got off of work, and they gave us a half day for Thanksgiving. They basically came to us at like noon and said, "Hey, everybody gather up. Everybody you get the rest of the day off." That's like, and go eat a bunch of turkey. It's like, all right, sweet. But yeah, so we worked almost 60 days, 7 days a week, 14-hour days. But it was amazing because, the logistical force, just, next thing you know, we were the largest base in the entire Middle East, bigger than a handful of bases that have been there as hardened facilities since the Gulf War. Mm-hmm. So, just the sheer scale of it was unfathomable.
Yeah. What are some things that you brought into your current business that you learned in that environment?
Well, sure. So most of I have the contracting business, which I've been doing with you guys. And that was largely driven off my management business for all of our rentals. Uh-huh. In the Air Force, so when stateside, what our job was, I worked in the electric shop. So there was about 15 electricians. And you come into work every morning. You got a whole base. We have water facilities. You got power production. You've got, HVAC shops, pavement and ground shops. You have 400 facilities, buildings on the base. You got weapons storage areas. So, it's a large scale, like its own little city. So you'd come in every morning, and I had some really good bosses. And I will say, it's like, the United States military is a large outfit, and the training is world class. I will give them that. There's certain things, it's not for everyone, but I enjoyed most of my time there, and the training was top notch. But I had a couple of really great bosses that took me under their wing. And watching what my boss would do in organizing work, dealing with stuff coming at us, and making sure everything flowed, and communicating with our team correctly, right? Those are probably things I learned there. And then they promote you through there. So by the time I was 22 years old, I had 4 or 5 guys reporting to me. I was evaluating on them. I was in charge of basically all of our, I was inventory for our shop, and we were spending, this is 2000, and we were probably doing $12 million a year. So as a 23-year-old kid, it seemed like, it was a lot, but but you'd been doing it in the way they taught you. It was just like, this is what I'm doing now. They showed me how to do it. And so, those skills have been invaluable to what I brought here. And then when I left the Air Force, it was amazing. Those skills helped out immensely, but what I did know about business at that point in time, so my first foray into trying to go do my own thing.
And that's Swift Plumbing and Electrical?
Yeah, it was Swift Plumbing and Electrical, just because we couldn't think of a better name. So I was like, well, we can just be fast and quick. It worked. It worked. But no, so and a lot of that was, we had a good friend of ours that was landing these big contracts with these power plants. So that's kind of what it evolved into. We were going and working in these power plants, and it was great money, but we were gone on the road about 40 weeks of the year. We'd get some work around town every once in a while, but it was generally up in Iowa. These large power plants for Mid-America Energy was probably our biggest client. We were putting in all this new fire protection for them, all the pipe fitting for the suppression lines, all the water, all those things. And that was a great experience too. Being an electrician, actually spending about 3 years of my life and seeing how the production really works on a large scale was very interesting.
And is Swift Plumbing and Electrical still running?
No, that one basically shut it down in 2008.
And tell me about that. So how did you make that decision, and why?
Oh, basically, like I said, I gotten married in 2006, and then in the spring of 2007, we had our first child, my oldest, my daughter. And my wife was, she's a trooper. She was pregnant that whole time, our first kid. We had just been married a little over, a few months, and then she's pregnant. And she did that first year pretty much me on the road the entire time. I'd show back up 6 o'clock on a Friday, and I'd leave about 5 a.m. on a Monday.
Those are some stressful years.
Oh, absolutely. And she was working full time. She's an ICU nurse down at Children's Mercy. So, long hours, stressful job in its own right. And, but she's a trooper. And then my daughter was born, and she still did it for about 6 months. And then finally she came to me one day, and she's like, hey, this is not what I signed up for. This is not the life I had envisioned for us. And I was making the best money I'd ever made in my life. It was crazy. But I just knew it. Didn't even flinch. I was like, no, you're right. This is not what I want to be doing. I don't want to be living in hotels forever, not being around my children, not doing, we weren't even really getting into the kids yet. It was so new, I'm just trying to, work on 3 hours of sleep when I was home, because, it's like feed the baby, change the baby. It's always, you know how it is. We've all had kids. But anyway, so I was like, you're right. I went and talked to the guys I was with. I'm like, and so Swift P&E got dissolved. I had a partner on that. He went and just took a job with a guy we were doing some business with. At this point, he was landing some bigger contracts, and it was just going to work out. So he went and took a job with him. We had some other guys. They all went and worked with him. And I kind of just said, hey, I'm going to go my own way. And they wished me well, right? And I did. And believe me, there was a few times over the next 3 years when I saw the kind of money those guys were making. And I went to Ameriprise at that point in time, because it was funny. That was right around the downturn was getting ready to happen. No one quite knew it yet. This was 2007. But jobs were already tightening up. So I was looking for work, and it was tough. But Ameriprise was a financial, which I knew nothing about that at the time. That name was actually pretty new.
What were you doing there?
Well, I was going to be hired to be a financial advisor. So they saw my background. I'd been going to school the entire time I was doing Swift P&E. I was just taking a computer in the hotel rooms, and I was just knocking out about 15 hours a semester on my computer, and I'd just show up to Park University, take some finals at the end of the semester, and get my credits. So I was about done with that. So I started putting my resume out there, and I almost took a job with BE Aerospace, which was a company here in town that did like the internal parts. It was a project management position for the installation of the interiors of commercial jet planes. And it was funny. They saw I was in like the Air Force, so they figured I knew about planes, which I let them believe that, even though I never worked on a plane in my life. But then Ameriprise called, and BE Aerospace was going to be this nice salary with benefits and a lot of security, but it was, you're going to be in this cube, you're going to be doing this, which in some ways seemed fine to me. But then Ameriprise was this idea. It was like, hey, you can make as much money as you want. There's no limit. You got to be good at math, which I was always been pretty good at that. That was my biggest strength in school. And you got to be able to talk to people. And at 25 years old, I thought I could talk to anybody. I was just like, oh yeah, people love me. I mean, sure, this is easy. So I did. I went that route instead, which was a process. It was like about 6 months of studying and licensing. And I had to go get a Series 7 broker's license, a Series 66, it's an investment fiduciary was a license, and then a bunch of insurance was a licensing, which those were pretty standard. Tests are, pretty straightforward. The 7 is a tough test. That going in, so they really make you study for that. So what they had you do is you'd have to come meet with the VP that was in charge of Kansas City 3 hours a week on, Mondays, and it'd be me and like 20 other guys and gals that were all trying to get this licensing, and we'd all be in different phases of our studying for this. And then we'd also start getting some ideas of like, this is what your job's going to look like when you get here. These are some things you should know. So I went through all that. It was about 6 months. At that point in time, I actually had just renovated. While I was doing the studying, I was renovating this house I had in Lawrence that I bought when I got out of the Air Force, because I was trying to sell it, because at this point now, the downturn was coming. I didn't need that house anymore, because I didn't end up going to KU like I thought I was going to. So I have this house in Lawrence I don't need, but then I couldn't sell it. So that's another story. But I remember I was finishing up that house right before I was doing my licensing. So I got my licensing done, and then I worked at Ameriprise for 5 years. And that's probably, college was great, but I mean, it's kind of like what the Air Force did to me. I did the Air Force for over 5 years. The training they gave me, the experience they gave me was invaluable in what I do today.
You told me a little bit about learning to goal set and
Sure.
to track progress towards these objectives.
Absolutely.
What were you doing there in terms of goal setting?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I got to Ameriprise, it was two types of things. They bring in, once again, great training. They brought in people. I mean, the amount of money they invested into all of us, I look back now and think was crazy, because I mean, it really was a huge investment into a lot of people that really just didn't pan out. But no, so goal setting, all those things, I mean, two sides. First, they would set us up and say, this is how you do business planning for your business as an advisor at Ameriprise. So, and they would give us, we would take probably almost 20 hours at the end of every year, and they would give you this whole package that you had to fill out with your numbers from this year, your numbers next year, what your marketing plan was to hit your annual goals for these growth, all those things. So that was step one, was learning how to really draw out a plan, put it on paper, look at where I am today to where I want to be 12 months from now, and then what are the individual steps that get you from A to Z? What's B through Y?
What
right?
were some of those steps back in that?
Well, first off is just it's almost any book you read on these things, but was it measurable, realistic goals?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't say, I want to be a rocket scientist in 12 months.
Right.
That's not realistic, right? And it also needs to be measurable. People are like, well, I want to be happy in 12 months. Well, what is happy?
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first steps. And then it's honestly pretty simple. And anything you don't know, go talk to somebody and find out who does know, right? It's like, hey, if I want, for me, like, so when I was growing my management company, when I finally buckled down and said, hey, I want to grow management, I said, I need to make X, was it money? And I'm at, A here. How do I get to X? Mm-hmm. Then it was, all right, well, I need to get 5 clients a week. And this is what I learned at Ameriprise. They dumbed it down for us. I mean, my old boss used to say, the best guys I can bring here are used car salesmen. He's like, because they don't think about what they're trying to sell. They just go and sell it. Don't make it difficult. Just keep it simple. And it was make 500 dials a week. So 100 phone calls every day. And if you do that, they said you'll set 8 appointments. You'll set 8 appointments, you'll see 3. If you see 3, you'll sell 1. Sell 1 every week, you'll hit your goals. And that was the plan. And they were right. And there's all kinds of mantras they give you, because if you've ever, or anyone has ever had to dial for dollars, as we would call it, it's a brutal job. But it was explained to me once, and it was probably, because it's, once again, you simplify it down to that 1 phone call. And if you go, all right, well, a client's worth this much money, say it's $10,000. Well, if you make 500 phone calls a week and you get 1 client every week, well, each phone call is worth $200. Yeah. So you get $200 every time you pick up the phone. Yeah. Pick it up.
That's right.
Do it over and over again. Yeah. So it's like, was it muddling through all those things we don't enjoy about our jobs?
It's such a motivating way to think of it, though.
Sure.
Because that could be so demoralizing, just wasting your time, thinking that you're wasting your time, but you're not. If you view that as $200 every time.
Exactly right.
That's the best thing you could be doing with
Oh, yeah. And you tell somebody, it's like, hey, if I told you I'll give you $200 every time you pick up the phone, yeah, they would be the fastest phone dialing guy. They would have dialing machines and a headset. They'd be like, I found ways to not touch the phone because I just need that thing to go. And that's what, you kind of did. And then, the other side of it was, Phil, like Ivy, is a card player. Some people might know him or not, but he's a very famous card player, World Series of Poker guys, won a lot of things. And I remember a long time ago, I read a story about him. And he was a poor kid, but loved playing cards, but always didn't have the money to play cards. But what he would do is he would sit in poker rooms in Vegas or like Atlantic City, and he would just watch thousands of hands of cards. And that's kind of what I felt like I got when I was at Ameriprise. Because first off, I was, 25, 26 years old. Younger kid, kind of getting my family together now, starting to have some ideas about what I'd really like to do and how I'd see my life turn out. But my whole job was sitting down with other people and talking to them about how they wanted their lives to turn out and what they had done, how they were saving money. And a lot of these people were 10, 15 years older than me. I mean, they're thinking about retirement. I got some kids that are getting ready to go to college in a few years, all these things. Well, I looked at it as, these people would come in and they would bring in every piece of financial information they had about themselves and would show it to me. Like, here's my car loans. Here's every good and bad decision I ever made in my life financially. And then you would sit there and analyze it and try to very nicely tell them, like, hey, we've talked about your goals. I see where you want to be. Here's what you have, where you're starting at. This is your incomes. We can do what you need to do. There's some ways we can invest your money. That's going to be good, and we can get some return. That's going to get you some of it. But most of the time, it was your behavior as a person. Here's what you need to do, and these are those small tasks. And if you do this, then you're going to hit your goals, right? Me and some guys I was with at Ameriprise, we bought a couple of houses my last couple of years there. I just really started feeling like, I'd much rather be in this game than this suit and tie in an office. I like wearing a polo to work. I can wear short pants if I want to and still be a serious person. But that was a huge leap again, because it was a leap when I went to Ameriprise, and I was just probably at that point where it was gonna, the money was, I was making decent money, but it was gonna start getting good.
How did you get into the real estate game? What was your first deal?
So, like I said, I was at Ameriprise, and so when I was in the Air Force, I lived with a guy, and we rented this house from another guy. You know, there's a management was a company, so we were renting this house. Well, then the owner of that house decided he wanted to sell. So one of our roommates, he was the oldest of all of us by a good bit. He was like, I'll buy the house and you guys just pay me. And we were like, yeah, sure. I mean, we were all like 21, 22. It was cheap. It was a bunch of us buddies. We were taking all of our like allowance money from the Air Force and pocketing it because we were living so cheap. And well, I'm probably spending it on beer or something stupid, but I was saving a decent bit of it actually. So we bought that house. Well, then the downturn came. This is the same guy I was doing Swift P&E with, so we were partners there. And his parents were getting up in age, and were in like the Cleveland area, and he needed to get back there and take care of them. But he couldn't sell his house at the time because the market had just kind of bottomed out. And so he came to me and the third gentleman that was doing the power plant business, and the two of us basically bought him out of his share of his house and said we basically we valued it at a price, figured out how much he owed on it, and then just gave him the difference in those and said we'll assume the mortgage and just start paying it. Don't worry about it. And he was like, yeah, I trust you guys, it'll get paid. So we did that, and we turned around, rented it out. You know, about a year goes by, and I didn't think much of it. And then the guy I was partnered with now on the house calls me up, and he's like, hey, I'm in a bind, cash flow crunch with my business. I need some cash right now, and I need it quick. And he's like, I'd like to sell you that, I was interested in this house. And I said, okay, sure. I don't have a lot of money right now. Best I could do was, I think, 10 grand I gave him. And he said, okay, sure. That gives me what I need. And I really don't want to deal with this thing anymore anyway. I said, okay. So then I really didn't have 10 grand. I had 5 grand. So then I talked to my partner at Ameriprise, and I said, hey, you want to make some quick money? I think there's some value down in this place. You want to put in 5 grand? He said, sure. So then I called my brother, and I said, hey, I think we need a little money to fix this place. Do you want to put in 5 grand? He said, sure. So we took some nights and weekends over about 3 months and went down there, and we gave 10 grand to this guy and took the other 5 grand and just went down there and worked on this place and got it done. Then we're going to sell it. It was like, make some quick money, be out of this thing. Hire this, was a real estate agent, and she comes down and says, well, basically values the place at 30 grand more than what we thought it was going to be worth. So rather than sell it, I have this great idea. I'm like, well, I got a friend at the bank. My brother works at this bank. I said, hey, we should call Josh and see if he'll give us a loan on this house. So I called him up. He said, yeah, sure, we'll give you a loan. You guys all have good, incomes? Was it steady jobs? House is good house in a nice neighborhood. So he gave us the loan. Well, at that point, we'd gotten back, I think it was just on the financing, he gave us a check for like $18,000. So we started with 15. Now we got 18. And we're like, oh, wow, and we still own the house. And we're renting it out. We're like, this is great. I always wanted to get into the rental game, and I think I might have just, fell into it.
Yeah.
So for the next, I'd say 12 months, we found 3 more homes, renovated them, financed them. So now we have 5 rentals going. And I'm starting to realize I'm not really, I'm maintaining my client base at Ameriprise. I'm taking care of those clients. Everybody's happy, but I'm not driving new business, right? Because that's a whole different game. And it dawned on me, it's like, Travis, it's like you're spending your nights, your weekends away from your kids. You really like doing this, and you see the benefit in it. So I will say, I wouldn't say this is the best advice to give to people, but sometimes you're doing right. If you feel it in your heart and you just know it's right for you, because I saw the look on about 4 different people's faces that I respected immensely. One is my father-in-law. When I told him I was going to quit my job and I was going to do this full time, when people don't say anything to you because they respect you, but they look down and almost like you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Yeah. My boss, who was at Ameriprise at the time, he is a stand-up guy. He's done great things, bigger than the job he had then. And he's a go-getter. And he looked at me like, you're making the biggest mistake of your life, right? My wife, she loves me. She never once didn't believe in me. But I could see it in her eyes. She goes, I hope you know what you're doing because I think you're making the biggest mistake of our lives. I will say most boys have this going for them, and if you don't, I wish you did because it's been what I've had going for me. My mom and my grandma, the two ladies that have always been there, they think I can do anything. So they're like, oh, yeah, of course. You've got it. We completely believe that you're going to do that and be successful. So at least I had that going for me. The standards have changed to where now I need to have 2 years of verifiable tax returns as a self-employed business owner to even be able to say I have a job. And I have this portfolio, which is making some money, but it's financed. I mean, it's not a ton of money. So I was like, wow, I really have just, I'm out, I don't know, been out of Ameriprise about a year. At the same time, I was really ramping up. I was starting to flip some houses too. And I thought I was real smart. All this hit me in about 1 month. So it was like being in 2013, because I remember it was probably the worst year I think I ever had.
You're thinking that you have unlimited runway on
I
acquiring
did.
properties and refinancing.
I did. And well, they told me, I mean, the number they gave me, I knew I had some runway, but the number they gave me, the max amount that I thought I was going to be allowed to borrow, I was only about 15% of the way into it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I come to get another loan and it was like, whoa, financing is dried up. So then it changed to flip them, right? Yep. Which was good. But so then I started ramping up the flips to where it was like, okay, I need to really get faster at this. So I brought in crews. I was starting to scale a little bit. And I remember the day was probably just a few months after the financing dried up. I got a house, and I get the check. You sell a house on a flip. So anybody that's flipped Lake houses knows those days. You get this check that's just seems like a huge amount of money. Yep. Goes into your account. So you're always feeling good on those days. They're just it's like big hands of poker. Everybody remembers the days they sell a house. Get that check, and but not only did I get that check, I was at this house, and at that point in time was the coolest flip I'd ever done. It was a 110-year-old house. We'd gone through and restored all the woodwork. And just made this thing beautiful. Well, I'm in there sweeping the floors of this thing, getting ready to put the for sale sign up. I'm like, I just sold a house, getting ready to sell another house. I've already got my crew. They're working on the next house. We're going to have that one done. I got this machine going. Yep. My financing's dried up, but as long as I can get this machine going now, I can keep my cash flow going. I'll have my 2 years of tax returns, and I'll be able to get back to my business model. Right. Well, all of a sudden, the neighbor, I'm in there sweeping the floors. This neighbor comes from next door and is banging on the door. And so I go to the door. I'm like, can I help you? And he's like, there's smoke coming out of your attic. Oh. And I go, well, what do you mean? And I come outside, and there's smoke coming out of the attic. And I remember the guy's voice because I start running back into the house, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to get my phone. I got to call 911. So I do. I call 911. Ended up being a fire. They cut through my brand new roof, spray like 10,000 gallons of water into my brand new finished house. Oh, all these things get destroyed. Oh. Was it luckily? I was a financial advisor and planned ahead a little bit, had good insurance. Mm-hmm. It was all going to get covered. But it didn't get fixed for months. It just was a process. That house didn't get sold for 9 months after that date. Next thing you know, I'm in a cash flow crunch again because now I'm trying to get this next one done. I had this big check, which I thought was going to be like, that's just got to carry me because this one's going to sell pretty quick, and I'm going to get So it really just set me back that year, which, looking back now, they were all great learning experiences. I really learned to, balance emotions, balance cash flow better, balance, understand that in a business, the runway's not always guaranteed. Right. Sometimes curveballs come out, and, make sure, planning is great. Yep. Anyway. Yep. So it was about 2017, I finally just leaned into it and said, well, I think I mentioned to you, about 5 years in, I just didn't know. I was burned out. I just had all these things that had hit me between my financing, a lot of little things. It was nothing that I never did overcome, but it felt like I was working just way too hard for the amount of money I was making. Mm-hmm. I was, the hours I was putting in, the things you miss with your family. So I was thinking, maybe it's better just to go back and get a job. So I went and found a sales job, kind of like, I feel like I was better at sales. I think I told you I did it for like 2 weeks. Yeah. And I just went to the guys like, I really apologize for wasting your time, but I just can't come here anymore. I gotta get back to what I do. I realized at that point I was broken. I can no longer like punch a clock or work for somebody. I mean, if there's nothing to be done, I'm gonna go home. But I usually find something to do. So I did, and then I just buckled in and said, you know what, I'm gonna lean into this. Was it property management? I think there's something there.
So what did you do? How did you go in and attack the weight of the responsibilities and the constant work and the grind?
Sure.
You don't want to just get buried back under that same pressure.
Exactly right. So yeah, I did come at it much different this time. So
What was the new strategy?
the new strategy was I was working out of my basement at the time, right? I was a one-man crew. I was the handyman. I was the property manager. I was the bookkeeping. I was, creating system. I mean, I was creating statements on Excel.
So you're running pretty much everything on your own at this point.
Absolutely.
And how many rentals were you managing?
I had about 40,
Okay.
which I will tell you was the worst job I ever had in my life, because it was just, I felt like I was drowning every day. It's got so many people coming at me. So the very first thing I did was like, I needed to find a software system. In my mind, I was like, I knew I needed something that could organize everything I had, so I could, because I felt like I was just forgetting things. I was trying to do something, somebody would call me, I try to make a note, and then people are upset, like, I called you 6 hours ago about this leaky toilet, and whatever, all the things. So I was like, I need to get a system. I need to get better visibility. I need to, this is at this point, we're talking 17. So I'm like, technology, smartphones are a thing. I'm like, we need to have an app, or we need to have some things that make everything easier for me and the tenant, the landlord, everybody. So we found Buildium, which is the software we use to this day.
Buildium.
Yeah.
And so you were happy with it from the start?
Yeah, I would say it's like most softwares with this like systems. The first six months, I was still trying to use my Excel spreadsheets. I was using it for some things.
Yeah.
And so the next step was, okay, now I got this kind of working. It's not costing me much. Was it money? But I'm still the one-man show. So that was one thing. I was like, I need to get out of my house, and I need to bring on a maintenance person. Was my idea. It's like, if I can get the maintenance fixed where I could just be in the office, then that would be better. So was it luckily I was still doing some flips, and had a guy that was doing flips like for me, and it came to me. It's like sometimes the world just works, and says, hey, I just wanted to let you know I can't do any more flips. And I go, well, what's going on? And he goes, well, I'm closing my business now, and I don't want to be in business anymore. All the same things I was just talking about. He's like, I'm working 14-hour days. I'm never around my kids. I just want a job. And I said, well, hey, that's funny you mentioned that. Why don't you just come work for me? Because I was looking at maybe getting ready to hire somebody, and I think you'd be great at it. And he goes, okay, sure. That sounds great. Well, and the funny thing about that is he worked for me for like 2 days as the maintenance guy for my management company. And he comes to me, he's like, hey, my phone keeps ringing. And I'm like, what do you mean your phone keeps ringing? And he goes, well, all my old clients, they're calling me up, wanting me to do work for them. He's like, what should I do with these phone calls? I'm like, well, answer the phone.
Yeah.
And we'll work it out. TNT Contracting then became what it is today, where we're doing, we do all the work for our management company. We do the work for third-party retail work, so kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels, siding, windows.
So you have one office manager, one maintenance guy, managing 250 properties.
Yes. I'm still decently involved, but no, they pretty much take care of, I would say, outside of like running the accounting and just making sure I still keep the money to me, because for me, it's a couple of things. It's largely, I get a pretty good idea how the business is really running. When you see, here's all the projects, the inflows, outflows, you start getting a pretty good idea when you're looking at the invoices, what was done. I can keep at least a idea of how the business. So if an owner calls me about a faucet on one of those 250 doors, it doesn't blindside me.
Sure.
And who fills vacancies?
Shelly does. We are working on that. I'll give it to her. We're working on a new leasing person right now, because I probably have taken advantage of Shelly for too long on that side, but she's just so good at what she does, because we've tried before, and it's just, she's a special person. Yeah.
That's what it takes, is to have a handful of special people around you to be able to overcome these challenges.
You do, yeah. You got to find those good people. But HR, finding those people, by far the hardest thing I ever found. Because I remember one point I wanted to be the best property manager I could be, and I was like, well, I don't want to be the best property manager. I kind of learned that. Like, I mean, that's why I started trying to expand, and I hired Shelley, who is maybe I think the best was property manager I've ever met.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I realized is I need to be the best business owner for her, to give her the support she needs to excel at her job.
So what have you done to combat that? Have you gotten better at finding special people, or have you gotten better at establishing a system and a culture?
I would hope to say a bit of both. So more systems, utilizing those systems. Like I said with Buildium, like when I brought Shelley in, that's kind of my point there. I really didn't utilize it. When I brought her in, she could be 100% focused on running that office and sitting on that software.
Right.
And what I did with her, and like I said, she was a special person. So the first one's pivotal.
Uh-huh.
I got her in here. I'd found her from another management company, and she had been there when she started with them, they had 80 doors, and over a 5-year period, they went to 600 doors.
Wow.
So she saw the massive growth phase, saw all the growing pains, hurdles, roadblocks you run into. Because I don't know how many times I've had the conversation with her going, hey, we have this problem. I was thinking we do A, B, and C. And she goes, you would, because that's exactly what we thought. And what we found was D, E, and F were the result, and it didn't work. So we came up with, 1, 2, and 3, and we got to the 4, 5, and 6.
Man, that's invaluable to have someone, and you could hire on that experience,
Sure.
things that you would have to learn otherwise on your own, just making the wrong decision.
Absolutely. And I did have staff that walked out when I hired her because I had a couple people tell me, it seems like she's running this place now and you're not, and we don't like it. And I just said, she's listening to me. She's giving me what I want, and I need you guys to all get on board.
Yeah.
And most did, some don't, right? But it was, those are the other tough parts. These people, I mean, it's with rentals or employees, tenants and landlords, it's easy in business. We all, especially in this world, we get stuck on our programs and Excel spreadsheets. These are all real people on the other side of these numbers every time. And in running a business, having a good business plan and navigating that is important. But the interpersonal skills that we learn through all of our lives in one way or the other, it's just as invaluable. I mean, these people, they are real people. They're not always going to be 100%, bringing it every day. But sometimes they have bad days, good days, and it's your job sometimes to figure out what is they having. Is work stressing them out, or is it something else? Right. And what can you do to make sure that they feel safe, secure, supported, heard, seen, right?
So many challenges in running a business.
Absolutely. No, it's very tough. But no, if you find good people, good systems, and then, always try to get better every day. So
what's the plan? What's the path ahead look like?
So our plan now, like I said, we're getting into, it's still I guess it's the same plan I had, almost 12 years ago when I left my job ideally it was I'm going to own a rental portfolio and kind of like ride off into the sunset as this, real estate investor guy, like mogul guy, whatever you want to call yourself. I'm going to make so much money, I'm just going to have to hang out, right? But no, so that's the goal, but it's turned into now like knowing what we've learned in the last 10 years was, and what I learned at Ameriprise, this housing problem we're in, I think I've identified that was it early. So about 3 years ago, start putting together a team to basically, I guess, finish off the last step of our vertical integration. Because I have all the way down, the way I look at it is, it's like a pro forma on a rental. You get your rent, $1,000, let's say. First item that's going to come off is, let's say, your taxes. Taxes and insurance, got to pay those. All right, so that comes out of my rent. Then I might hire with a property manager. All right, so that comes out of my rent. I got some maintenance, so that comes out of my rent. Got to buy a house to get the rental, so I got the real estate agent, so that comes out. All these expenses. So largely I've been trying to control every step of this process for two reasons. One is quality control, and one is an efficiency of cost, right? Eliminating, was it middlemen?
Yep.
So that vertical integration is key. Well, now we're trying to take it to that last step, which is the new construction, but then developing an entire, was it neighborhood, putting up our, so develop the land, build the infrastructure, throw up the real estate, rent the real estate, finance the real estate, maintain the real estate, collect the rent.
It makes so much sense. Instead of looking for what's been picked over in this market that has no supply, just go in and create the supply.
Exactly right. Was kind of my idea. I mean, I've watched, your guys' business too. And like we've said, if you're in your game right now, the people that come to you, was it largely to flip, was it houses? Mm-hmm. Still a great business to be in if you are very good at it right now. Because like you said, it has been picked over. I look around, was it neighborhoods all over the metro? Used to be able to find tons of inventory? Well, there's neighborhoods that used to be pretty rough, was it neighborhoods? You're hard pressed to go in there and find a house that hasn't been redone in the last 10 years. You're like, this neighborhood's great. Everything's was remodeled.
You hear about gentrification and some people looking down on home flippers, but when you go into a neighborhood that was distressed 10, 15 years ago,
absolutely,
and the houses now all have nice yards and they're put together, that's a great thing for the community.
Well, yeah, and you would used to see, I've dealt with, we have rentals from, high end, gated communities with pools, down to a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom ranch in some of the, what people would consider the roughest, was it neighborhoods in, was it Kansas City, Missouri. And, I've seen places in Kansas City, Missouri where 10 years ago, you would be hard pressed to feel safe going down the street if you were a child, a woman, lots of reasons. And you go down them now, and there's a nice school at the end of the block. Every house has been remodeled. You see kids out in the yard playing. I do understand, like, the gentrification side on the negative is people are like, well, where are these people are supposed to go? And it's true, and that's the problem we have, and which led me to my conclusion that, we have a massive housing problem in this country, and it's, come back from 2008. We were overbuilt, and then we just got out of the building, was it business as a country, because we were overbuilt. Well, then you have a labor problem because now it's time to build again.
You can't just flip that switch back on.
No, there's these guys, it's funny, the framer just didn't go back to his house and wait around for 5 years. No, he got a job doing computer programming. Right. He went down the road and they said, you can learn how to be a programmer in 8 months. And guess what? That guy's 10 years, was it older now?
Yeah.
Some good systems. And I'm working on some ideas there. I'm trying to get in with some of the trade schools in town and build like a mentorship program with some of my guys.
It's a wonderful idea.
Find these young kids that it's like, hey, college tuition's expensive. We all hear there's all those problems too right now, student debt relief. So it's like, hey, I'm not saying college was great for me, and I think everybody should at least experience a little bit of that.
Sure.
But there's a lot of ways to get through it. I made some choices, I should say, when I was younger that gave me the opportunity to have some school paid for.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
And you were able to extract so much value out of those experiences too.
Absolutely.
How much of that did you bring to the table that helped you fertilize the early ground of your business?
Sure.
With all of what you learned in the military and at Ameriprise.
Absolutely. And college was great. But without those two, those were like, I probably took more from those two experiences than college. College, though, is, don't get me wrong. Taking classes in like economics and things like that, you learn things.
Fundamentals.
Absolutely. But to specialize in the things that we do, we all understand that. You get into your job, you get experience in your job. You're going to be, right out of college or 10 years of experience. Which one do you think's better? I want my 10 years experience, of course.
Right.
But yeah, so that's where we're at today. That is the plan. Onward and upward, build them from scratch. We'll sell some to our clients, maintain that, management. That was the other thing too. It's not only the vertical integration, but growing the management company and doing that kind of work. You sometimes run into landlords that ideologically you're not on the same page with, so it's just not a good fit. They don't want to repair things to a certain standard that you think it needs to be. Whatever. Those are simple.
Sure.
But then also, what a lot of people, once again, it's like the renovation. Hey, I bought this piece of real estate, or I got a house. Will you manage it for me? And you go in and it's all disrepair. It's a heavy lift, right? And once you stabilize them, they're easy. The idea with the new construction is going in pretty much what you have to build. You don't open up a wall, there's not many surprises.
Yeah.
The other side is too, if you build it knowing that, hey, we're going to be the ones maintaining this, so make sure it's built right.
Right.
It just
That's
makes
a wonderful idea.
it makes everybody's life, a whole lot easier. And ideally, once again, we all did this to, go into business to make some money, right? I mean, I haven't met anybody that ever went into any type of real estate investing just because there was at least a dollar motive behind it.
Sure.
So, our idea is, you're getting the real estate commission. You're working with them on that. So you're basically their real estate agent. You're getting the construction, you're getting that GC fee because you're now the general contractor. You're building all this. You sell the house to one of your clients, you're getting that property management fee and the maintenance ongoing.
And you have a fresh stock of quality housing that you could go in and refinance yourself. And as you're able to qualify for more loans, you're adding to your own portfolio.
Absolutely. And then I got Shelly there, making sure the tenants that we put in there, and that's, I guess, if there's a secret sauce that I could give anybody if you're interested in the rental game, is build a quality product, figure out what the top of the market is for that rental and your space, and then come in 5% less.
Yeah.
Try to be the best was a product, because everybody in this world understands was it value.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can provide a valuable rental, you can gain a valuable tenant, because we all understand paying your rent on time is a big part of it, and then maintaining the property and just being a good steward of that property while you're there.
Sure.
And we've had great luck with that. When you can, if you're priced correctly, you'd be amazed in places where they told me that you'll never be able to find good tenants in these areas. You'll never be able to, this is always going to be a bad spot. I mean, I'm telling you, Tommy, I've had ones where I've had people shot at the property. I've had people, just bad life decisions. I mean, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but just decisions in people's lives that lead them down very tough roads, right? And just creates bad environments to live in, crime, desperation, all these things.
Yeah.
And gone into these places, and you go, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to go clean house, fix the whole thing up, and we're going to start from scratch. And if it can be done, I had places where we were, 30% vacancies or delinquencies on rent. We're getting low-end rents. We're getting the police called to where, 8 months later, a year was later, we've increased our rents by 40%. We're 99%, paid up on time. We haven't had a maintenance call, a police call, any call, right? I mean, and I'm renting it to people that they said would never live in this neighborhood, and of course they will.
You're doing a service to the world.
I hope so. I mean, I think that's what we all want to do. Is I guess in the most business I found is going back to the money part. It's like we all you go into this thinking you want to make money, and
You have to make money. You have no choice.
Yeah, you got to make money, and it goes back to that planning part too. It's like, this is where I want to be, and then you get down to those daily tasks, right? These are the tasks I need to do to get to that end goal. Well, what you realize when you're doing that, it's not about the money anymore. Mm-hmm. You just do quality service, quality product. Just do it right. And I try to tell my kids this too. It's not just business, it's life. You're given a million different decisions in your life every day. I mean, small ones to big ones. You're going to have, what am I going to eat for breakfast? Am I going to sleep in 30 minutes, or am I going to exercise? Am I going to, go to work 20 minutes, was it early, and just do a little bit more to try to get a bit better? It's all these things, all these decisions. And none of us are going to be perfect. I mean, some days you're going to sleep in, you're not going to feel like it. But if you can make the right decision, or the best decision, at least what you think is the best decision, every day. Now, I mean, every single time, in the end, you'll see it. And the money is just a product at that point. It'll just flow. You'll have so many people knocking down your door, trying to get you to do work for them, or with them, or whatever. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I'm excited to see what the future holds for you and to watch the new construction phase develop. I appreciate your friendship and your partnership and all that you've helped us with. Truly, it's hard to find someone you can count on, and you're one of those people.
Well, that goes both ways here. We've talked about that.
It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Very much appreciated.
No, I appreciate it too. Between my experience with you guys, I've learned a lot here too. From, I mean, the chats I've had with you about was it business. I think your podcast is great. I've been listening. I've already picked up things from other guys that I'm implementing in my business as we speak.
That's great. That's the hope, is just to bring successful people who have made it through the trenches and then tell the war stories. How did you get through? And everyone has a little bit different path in this world.
Sure.
And it's so valuable to share with each other and extract whatever little nuggets we can.
If you want to, I'll give you one more real quick from Bernie. This is one of the first ones. This was a house. It was a flip of my own when I first found Bernie, because they said there was this guy that doesn't use a computer, but you have to go find him and he'll give you money. So I had this house in like Overland Park, and I was flipping it, and I was done. It was good. Just wasn't moving. And Bernie comes out there, and I'm a hard-headed kid at this point. I wish I was better at taking advice, but I've gotten better over the years. At least I hope. And Bernie comes and he's like, Travis, what you need to do is you need to paint this basement. And I'm like, paint the basement? And he goes, I'm like, this is an old basement, Bernie. It's never going to look, it's just a basement. It's fine. He goes, I'm telling you, you paint this basement. This house is great. You've done a great job here. You need to paint this basement. And I'm like, you know what? This old man's crazy, but I'm going to paint this basement just to get him off my back, because he's calling me saying like, hey, when's your house going to sell? When's your house going to sell? And I'm like, all right. And no joke, I painted that basement within like 48 hours. We had a contract on thing for like $5,000 more than we were asking. So, like I said, it goes both ways. You learn something new every day, and at least you should be trying to learn something new every day, I think.
Yep. Amen. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Hey, Rebels, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to rate and review the Launchpad. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. We'd love to talk with you about how we can help, whether that's financing your next deal or partnering with us as a passive investor. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, leave us a comment and one of our team will reach out to you.